Well, first of all, now I understand why you wanted to do this podcast standing up, because you're using your whole body to explain, which is part of the whole process.
That's foundation training.
That's right.
Stability everywhere.
Thank you for that. So you also are obviously practicing what you preach, because you're doing it right in front of us. Let me ask you, let's go a little bit deeper into this. And remember, our audience is also lay people.
Yes,
so I want to go into this concept that you have really depicted in foundational training is decompression breathing and posterior chain activation. Explain those two facets and how they come together and create this, body's fascial network and nervous system connection.
I'll do my best. And
okay.
Thank you for the reminder of
good luck.
Yeah, thank you for the reminder of language, because that's like my Achilles, is sort of over explaining, unfortunately. So thank you. You caught me early, which I appreciate. So let me start with pelvic anchoring, because that's where everything expresses from in foundation training. You have to think of the first kind of, just take out what you know and be open-minded for a minute to what might be the pelvic structure, the bones of the pelvic wings, where they connect at the bottom at the pubic symphysis. That's your center of gravity, where those two hemispheres of the pelvis connect underneath you, the pelvic bowl. That center of gravity has suspension cables that keep it in place. The vast majority of those suspension cables attach below it. The adductor muscles, the hamstring muscles, the gluteal muscles, the iliacus muscle. Each of these muscles connects the femur or thigh bone to that respective pelvic wing on that side. Everything from there up, minus the shoulders, is in some ways dictated by the stability of that underside of the pelvis, where those muscles connect to it. So much so that I literally wrote a book in 2011 called Redefine Your Core, which illustrates the posterior chain muscles of the legs as a pretty significant piece of the core. The adductor muscles or groin muscles of the legs, where they connect to the pubic symphysis at the bottom of the pelvis, very important piece of the core of the body, the performance core, the stability core, the strength core. There's also muscles above the pelvis that connect to it, the rectus abdomen, the transverse abdomen, the obliques, the lats, all the way down to the back through the the thoracolumbar fascia. Major connections to the pelvis that dictate how the pelvis sits in space. Pelvic anchoring is the use of that 360-degree musculature that surrounds the femurs, the thigh bones, towards the pubic symphysis to find center. Most people will tell you to kind of change anterior pelvic tilt or change posterior pelvic tilt. What we're saying is pull down accurately from center. And that will neutralize either one of those tilts, and it will facilitate the ability of the torso to align expansively. It's got this now underside tension that it can feel safe with and lift away from, which leads to decompression breathing. So pelvic anchoring is pelvic wings down to the feet, to the arches, the stability line. Decompression breathing is an education towards expansion of the rib cage first, of the abdomen second. We do the rib cage first because we want the ribs to move away from center, as big and broad as they possibly can, which teaches the diaphragm initially to expand and contract accurately. When we get a little better at that rib cage expansion portion of decompression breathing, which is like a few days of practice, the muscles kick in very quickly. We start to train this eccentric, short muscle to long muscle contraction of the diaphragm. And we do that eccentric, short to long training of the diaphragm by maintaining, oh, you got balloons, maintaining this expansion as we exhale, making the transverse abdomen, the obliques, some other muscles that surround the abdomen contract and stay long, supporting this expansive length of the diaphragm while it's trained to sort of settle back down to its relaxed position. So decompression breathing trains the serratus muscles, which line the rib cage, and those serratus muscles are the informers of the diaphragm for its contraction. So you're really educating your body significantly in these processes. And foundation training is the combination of anchoring the pelvis and decompressing the torso against that tension in about 30 different positions. But most people really need to learn like 2. And if you learn 2, it's going to help you stabilize and do the other things you like to do.